So yes, so I have the privilege of introducing the award winners for this year. And the awards is a very important part of what we do at CAS, not just because we want to celebrate what our members are doing, but it's a really good way to kind of share best practice and ideas and just to get a sense of what's going on in the sector, really. We did worry a little bit this year about how we were going to do it because obviously we're in difficult times, and Tony Davey is in the room from Maker Memories, who were last year's winners, and he'll tell you normally, you get treated to a very lavish experience, at one of our conferences, but we weren't quite able to do that. So we've tried to make it as special as we can for the winners this year, and obviously the webinar series is very much part of that. So we'll go from here. I've resisted the temptation to kind of hand myself golden envelopes to open. I did think that was quite a good idea, but logistically I just thought it might get difficult, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go for the time-honored tradition of a PowerPoint. So this year's awards, we have 4 awards this year, and then the overall winner. And the awards that we look at every year tweak ever so slightly. We've been doing it for about a decade now, so there's quite a number of worthy award winners, and we try to reflect what's going on in the sector and what people are thinking about. So we have 2 awards which are community engagement and gathering and preserving heritage, and they're really our kind of, I would say, our standard sort of bread and butter. That's what we should be doing in the community archive sector. So those awards have been with us for a very long time, and again have been awarded for this year. This year we've brought in the idea of networks, because there was a really strong sense in the applications last year that people were binding together into different networks, and CAS itself has started thinking about more regional networks, and networks and communication are very much on the agenda. So that's something we wanted to look at. And also, for all the reasons that you've heard from Liz and everyone else this morning, or this afternoon, well-being. Because obviously well-being is so strongly coming onto the agenda for community archives, and also people are a little unsure how to measure, as we've seen, how to monitor their well-being, measure their well-being, chart their well-being. So it just seemed really important to include that as well. So that's the 4 awards we're looking at. So I'm building up the suspense here. So without further ado, the plan is that we'll announce each of the winners, and there is somebody in the room who will then sort of give us a 3-minute acceptance speech from each of those groups, and then the overall winner will give us a slightly longer presentation after that. So just to put everyone in the thing, again, I'd like to pretend that we had like Ant and Dec or something stood outside the room ready to burst in and give them their awards, but it may be a little bit more calculated than that. Budget only goes so far. So the first award that we're going to announce is Best Community Engagement for 2020. And when we looked at this as a judging panel, the group that we've awarded the award to, the judges commented it was a wonderful project, which was very different in its material and audience. Across the board, all the panel felt that they'd been really authentic and interesting in their intergenerational work. It was an engaging entry that talked about a new audience of young people who hadn't been interested in the archival world before, and indeed hadn't been to a museum prior to this project. So we just felt in terms of engagement, that's very exciting. But I won't steal their thunder because they'll tell you a bit about it themselves. So the winner of community engagement for 2020 is Chippenham Museum. Hey. And Elaine Davis is here to say a few words and collect the award on their behalf. So if I can get you to unmute, Elaine. And
I am. I should be, yes.
And you've got the award. Hooray.
I got the award. On behalf of Chippenham Museum and the Media, Computing and Music students and staff of Wiltshire College and University Centre, I am absolutely delighted to accept this award. We're really, really pleased. Gold Diggers Memories has truly been an inspirational project to have been involved with. and it's been an absolute privilege to work with Nicola Dew, lecturer in media at Wiltshire College, who I know is somewhere in the audience, and her students. It's been a complete pleasure to the work that they have done. So we want to say many, many thanks to Community Archives and Heritage Group. It is wonderful to have our work and our commitment and enthusiasm of everyone involved recognised in this way. You know, we hope to be sort of presenting at one of your seminars, but just to give a quick background, that Gold Diggers Memories is recording the nightclub that was in Chippenham in the 1980s and 90s, and the students undertook about 40 odd oral histories to tell the story of the nightclub. And as well as that, we've got a double celebration today, because we are celebrating the fact that we have just completed our documentary, which has gone live today. So if you can check us out on our website, which will have our documentary and all of our oral histories, and join the next seminar to find out more.
Brilliant. Thank you, Elaine. I believe that the thing for clapping is this, isn't it, when you're all muted? So big round of applause for Elaine. And as Elaine says, Chippenham will be talking at our next webinar session, which is the 16th of November. And the features there are community engagement in networks. So it will include Chippenham. It will include the People's Heritage Cooperative, who were very highly commended in this category. And also the winners of our network presentation, who I will come to now. So building up the suspense again, you see. So, oh no, I won't. I'll come to them in a minute. First of all, I'll do Gathering and Preserving Heritage. So Gathering and Preserving Heritage, with this particular group, the panel were very impressed by the archival work that was done, particularly as this isn't your typical archive project, and was really more concerned with media. We felt that the project was really topical in terms of the narratives that it explored, and the panel commented that this project may well bring in new audiences from different places, rather than waiting for them to walk into a museum archive or similar site. So building that up a little more, the award is awarded to Kirkleys Local TV. And there's there. And if I could ask Milton to unmute himself and accept the award.
Good evening, everyone, and hi, Alan and Jane. First of all, I want to thank the Community Archives and Heritage Group, right, for all the planning and prep for tonight, and to be, excuse me, to be surrounded with such talented people across the country. It's just remarkable that we have achieved such a high award. If I can just touch a little bit about KLTV, then I'm going to ask Dr. Heather Norris-Nicholson just to touch on the project. Is that okay, Ev? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With KLTV is 9 years old. We've been documenting community archives since 2011. We have over 3,000 webcasts, from the Kurdish Iranians to the Kurdish Iraqis, the African diaspora, the Caribbean diaspora, British-born African Caribbeans, and even in the Muslim and Sikh community, how culture intertwines with faith. We've unpicked all of that and celebrated that. We've even worked in rural white communities where it's a different kind of rural exclusion, and we've brought that to the urban community and vice versa. We've also worked in a community called Dewsbury Moor, where literally for the last 30 years there's been a divide with the local white community and the Asian community. And through our work, it really fostered a better future. So not only we are looking back at history, we're also creating history at the same time. The real stars, though, are our community commentators. Without them, we don't have anything, to tell you the truth. We put them at the center of everything we do. And also, We have a diverse workforce, representative board, and we co-produce on consistently with the University of Huddersfield, Sheffield, and many other local and regional voluntary sector and social enterprises. To be honest, we film, we create oral history and archive, and our ethics is always, we are there for our commentators, not there for KLTV. But to talk about the project that we presented to get this award, I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Heather Norris-Nicholson.
Hi, everybody.
Just a quick, Heather. It's such a privilege to be behind the camera interviewing people and listening. You just, for me personally, and also for the organization, I couldn't be so more proud that every time we interview people, we are enriched by their stories, and we feel so much better as people knowing that we've given somebody the opportunity to share their stories. And sometimes they're very challenging, and we have to, you know, we talk about the ethics we talked about. We can't show shock, we can't show horror, we have to show empathy. And that is difficult sometimes when you just want to put an arm around somebody. Mm-hmm. But over to you, Heather. I just want to thank Heather. She's been the lead. Also, Leah Conway. She's somewhere amongst 100 people tonight. She has been amazing. She has gone through every last stitch of footage. And Leah, between Leah and Heather and Ryan, them are the real stars for KLTV, have pulled all this together. But over to you, Heather, with regards to the Windrush Years After project.
Okay, thanks to the organizers, thanks to Milton, thanks to Leah and Ryan, who may be there somewhere. Yeah, great to see the certificate. I haven't seen it yet. The project was large and at times quite scary. We brought together over 80 volunteers and 12 organizations from the local African Caribbean community to volunteer their time, to share their stories, their experiences of over 70 years of an African Caribbean presence in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. It was a story of, as you might expect, of racism, of discrimination, of prejudice. And it was told with amazing dignity. And it was very humbling and to be part of a project that involved people sharing such poignant, such personal stories, so that others might learn, might recognize things that they could identify, and so that those stories might be out there for future generations to learn from and better understand. It was a story which had a particular group in mind, but it also had a wider audience. And as a way of reaching out to that wider audience, it was really important for us to bring volunteers on board from as many diverse backgrounds as well as possible. So we worked with people from within the African and Caribbean descent community, ranging in age from under 20 to over 80. And my goodness, that was amazing in itself. But we also brought together people from Asian backgrounds, South Asian backgrounds, from Eastern European backgrounds, from African backgrounds, from white British rural backgrounds. There were so many people who contributed, including people with learning difficulties and mental health issues themselves. Sometimes some of those issues were invisible and only gradually emerged.
Heather, I'm ever so sorry to interrupt. We're on a bit of a tight schedule, and I know you're going to talk about all this at our next seminar, aren't you?
Yeah, so thank you very much indeed for giving it to such a family of contributors, and thanks to all of them who have taken part. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Heather.
Alan, can I just quickly say a big thank you to your Community Archives and Heritage Group, and just a quick message to Elaine. I was in the military in the 1980s, and I was in Chippenham, and I used to go to gold diggers. Used to call it grave diggers back then, but so, you know, I've come full circle tonight, so I want to say a big thank you for that as well. I used to go to that nightclub that.
See, there's connections within our connections. I'm sorry to cut you short there, Heather, but I do know that at our seminar on the 7th of December, plug, you're going to be talking a bit more about the project. So
excellent.
Desperate to hear some more. And also, we're also going to feature Lee's Pavilion Archive, who again were highly commended in this thing. So that should be a really interesting seminar as well. So moving on, our next award goes to the Best Network of Community Archives in 2020. And the judges for this one, when we looked at it, we said that there was a really good mix of staff and volunteers contributing to the network. We appreciated the consideration of intangible culture, love a bit of intangible culture, and how they'd included the members' archives within the whole. And there were some really interesting conversations around the bleep bleep family, which I almost left in and spoiled the announcement, and we really enjoyed reading about it. So the winners for networks this year are the Irish Community Archive Network, and I believe Lorna Elms is in the audience and will unmute and accept the award.
I'm here. Thank you, Alan. I'm afraid our award certificate didn't arrive in time because we've had postal delays. So I found this in my son's bedroom. So I'm just holding it up just to signify our win. I'm really honoured and delighted to accept the Best Network of Archives 2020 award on behalf of everybody that's involved in the Irish Community Archive Network. Firstly, though, to echo the previous speaker, I'd like to congratulate the organising committee and judging panel on successfully delivering the CARG annual conference and awards online this year. Your work in supporting and advocating for community archives and community heritage across the UK and Ireland is hugely important, and it's much appreciated. The Irish Community Archive Network, or ICAN for short, because it's a bit of a mouthful, was conceived by the National Museum of Ireland's learning team back in 2008 and is now a thriving network of 28 community archives delivered in partnership. We aim to continue expanding the network so we can support more communities to digitise their collections and share them online. ICAN is, in the words of the British social historian Raphael Samuel, the work of 1,000 different hands. So there are many people to thank and acknowledge today. And I want to start with our community groups and acknowledge the amazing work that's being carried out on the ground. Their knowledge, their enthusiasm and passion for their history and heritage has resulted in a rich, diverse digital repositories that are being accessed and utilised by researchers, historians, genealogists, journalists, teachers and students all around the globe. We are so proud of them and all they have accomplished. Sincere thanks also to our local authority partners. The county heritage officers are so important to the success of our network model. Marie Mannion, Deirdre Burns and Congela Maguire have committed their time, their resources and expertise to ICAN and work with the National Museum to support community groups in their respective counties. Their colleagues across the archive, library, community archaeology and biodiversity fields also make a significant contribution to this initiative. Thanks go also to Jack Latimer, who I know is here today, and Ian Grant at Community Sites for providing ICAN with a user-friendly, versatile online platform and for their ongoing support. The website's contributory functionality ensures that the Irish diaspora and members of the general public can also enrich the archives in the network. Thank you also to my colleagues at the National Museum, Hassan Dabar, who does fantastic work supporting ICAN members on the technical side of things, and Lorraine Comer, Head of Education, who works consistently to support and sustain the project. Also to the many other colleagues that collaborate with us, supporting ICAN through their own work. Thank you to our steering committee, which oversees and guides the growth of ICAN, our 2 community reps, Mary O'Malley and Hazel Morrison-Paget, Marie Mannion from the Heritage Officer Network, Beatrice Kelly from the Heritage Council, and Sheila Deegan from the state-led Creative Island programme. We are particularly grateful to Creative Island for their financial support, which enabled the creation of 11 additional archives over 2019 and 2020. Finally, a little special acknowledgement for the significant contribution of a wonderful person, David Collins, Uachtarard Heritage Group. Dave worked with us on the pilot project back in 2008 and 2009 and continued to help shape ICANN until he retired in early 2019. Thanks, Dave. Without you, ICANN would not be what it is today. And thank you very much to everyone here today. Thank you.
I'm doing that. I can clap, can't I? I've got my sound on. Well done. Lovely. See, 3 minutes just isn't enough for people. I am sorry. I'm sort of rattling. But another plug for the webinars. You will be able to hear more at the Community Engagement and Network Seminar on the 16th of November. So book now to avoid disappointment. So on to our last winner. Oh, and there's your, sorry, I forgot to put that up. I'm going to back you up. There's your picture there. So then the last award is for Best Contribution to Wellbeing, which seems particularly timing and, well timed this year. And the judges were very impressed with how this group's use of oral history, or the oral history interview process, and how it had been used to give an older, often vulnerable people a sense of importance and purpose, and by giving people a chance to reflect upon their lives. The group themselves shared how the release of memory can work as a therapeutic process, which we've talked about a little today. And as a result, well-being felt truly embedded into the project rather than it being just another outcome. So the award for well-being this year is awarded to Kent's Sporting Memories. And before I move on to ask them to say a few words, I should also say that the overall winner of the Community Archive and Heritage Group for this year is Kent Sporting Memories. So they're going to have a little more time to talk about their event or their organisation as part of this event, which fits in very nicely with it being around well-being. So if I can ask Michael to unmute himself and accept the award.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Michael.
Here's the award. I don't know if you can read it, but yeah, it's got Kent Sporting Memories on there. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks Alan and Jane and the Community Archives and Heritage Group for these 2 fantastic awards. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone involved in the project in saying what an honour this is and how nice it is to get recognition in this way for the work we've done so far. So thank you so much, and also many congratulations to the other award winners and entrants. There's a lot more thanking to come, I'm afraid. First and foremost, to all the participants that have taken part in the project, from our interviewees to our Sporting Memories Club members and all in between, without whom this study would not have been possible. The volunteers were, of course, a huge part of the project, whether it was carrying out interviews, facilitating reminiscent sessions, filming, photography, or transcribing. Without their contributions to the project, it would be much diminished, and the participants much fewer as well. So thank you to all, but in particular to Errol Mills, Graham Jeffrey, Jill Eagleston, Lucy Tomlinson, and Oliver Parkin. Thank you to the Heritage Lottery Fund and the National Lottery players. Again, without their support, this project and others like it wouldn't exist, and a great deal of local history and heritage would be lost. Thank you to Kent Sports, the Active Partnership for Kent, for conceiving of the project, for writing an excellent funding bid, and for being excellent supporters throughout. Thanks in particular to Sophie Ward, and especially to Elise Rendell, who's been the most brilliant, supportive and interested project manager one could have. Many thanks to Chris Wilkins and all the team at the Sporting Memories Foundation, who have been a huge part of the project, particularly with the setting up and support of our Sporting Memories groups, which I'll talk about later. Thank you to the ever-enthusiastic Stephen Callis and all the excellent team at Folkestone Care Centre, and to Tessa Stickler at Folkestone Sports Centre. Both the Care Centre and the Sports Centre have been a huge help to the project. Thank you to Caring Altogether on Romney Marsh for providing me with a desk and much else besides. Thanks also to Kent Libraries, Kent Archives, the Romney Marsh Resource Centre, Age UK Folkestone, Age UK Hythe and Lyminge, Folkestone Cricket Club, the Let's Talk Dementia group at Hyde Library, and the Sunshiners group in Hawkinge. And just lastly, on a personal note, it was a real privilege to speak to some of the participants and to echo what Milton was saying earlier, to get a chance to hear about their lives and stories. Their kindness and hospitality was often amazing and will always stay with me. This sentiment extends to many of the other people who are either involved or interested in the project. And overall, it was just really inspiriting and inspiring to meet so many people dedicated to improving their communities and the lives of those around them. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michael. Big round of applause. So Michael's now got the opportunity to give us a slightly longer presentation around the project. So I'll be taking a similar position to Andrew, and I'll be driving the slides, and I'll be keeping an eye on any questions in the chat. So if anybody's got any questions as they go through, either pop a question into the chat or indicate that you'd like to ask a question at the end. So over to you, Michael, and just give me the heads up when you want the slide moved.
Okay, great. Cheers, Alan. Okay, so in this presentation, I'll give an overview of the project, explain why it's important or why we think it's important, discuss some of the ways in which it's more than about just sport, and also to talk a bit about our outcomes to date, as well as our plans for the near future. So just to summarise, Kent Sporting Memories was created to achieve two key goals, addressing two key areas of need. Firstly, the preservation of sporting heritage in East Kent, primarily through oral history. Secondly, to improve the health and well-being of elderly and socially isolated people in the area through reminiscence groups centred around the subject of sport and recreation. I'll now go on to discuss these two strands of the project and also talk about how these strands often intersected in really interesting and, in terms of the overall project, beneficial ways. We began the project in January 2019 with HLF funding for 2 years. As I mentioned earlier, the project was conceived by and is being undertaken on behalf of Kent Sport, the Active Partnership for Kent, and in coordination with the Sporting Memories Foundation, Kent Libraries and Archives, and the Older People's Charity Caring All Together on Romney Marsh. Kent has a very proud history of sport at an elite level, and while those histories are for obvious reasons incredibly important, this project's intention is to document a much wider range of experience and memories than that which is storied, and in the case of Kent County Cricket, for example, that which is already well documented. Using oral history primarily, but also reminiscence sessions, photography and filmmaking, the project has recorded the stories of nearly 30 people across East Kent. These stories have touched on a wide range of sports, including cricket, men's and women's football, wheelchair racing, powerlifting, disability fencing, boxing, basketball, windsurfing and sea swimming. And yet, just from carrying out a handful of interviews, it quickly became apparent that the project is about more than just sport, or rather that conducting oral history through the lens of local sport reveals far more than that which concerns just sport itself. So it is revealed, on the one hand, much about class relations and social stratification in Kent village and town life from the 1950s onwards, and about patterns of inequality and exclusion. A clear example of exclusion and the social dynamics that enforced it was articulated to me by Ham Street resident Sid Gittins, a talented cricketer who passed up the opportunity to train with Ashford because of a lack of means and his own self-conception. Also in Ham Street, Joyce Thompson set up and became the manager of a women's football team, the Ham Street White Wanderers, in the late 1960s, in spite of some condescending attitudes from local men. With little in the way of sporting provision in Ham Street and the surrounding villages for young women upon leaving school, Joyce saw the football team as a way of providing something active and positive for them to do. So on the other hand, the interviews demonstrated how sport was often the social focus of village and town life. Certainly the forging and experience of friendship seems to be the most prominent theme across the collections. Perhaps not surprisingly, sport was a great source of social participation and could engender commonality and communication, even across social and cultural divides. For example, Lyd footballer Pat Lindsay said it was playing football that bound him and his fellow Lydders with an outwardly disparate set of colleagues while they were working on the construction of the Dungeness Power Station in the 1960s. And in Folkestone, Hilary Casey, who is now the chair of Hythe Lawn Tennis Club, described the way in which the opening of Folkestone Sports Centre in 1972 was transformative for many families in the town and the surrounding area. Indeed, as part of the rise of community sports centres in the UK from the late 1950s, the sports centre provided the affordable use of previously unthought of facilities to all sections of the general public, including a dry ski slope. And with the implementation of kids sessions and holiday camps, the centre as a social resource was often very liberating for parents and particularly mums. The idea then was to focus on individual experience as a way of building up a detailed and multi-layered archive of the local sporting past that might reveal how change in an area is often refracted through changes in the sporting landscape. As you'll see if you go on our archive, we supplement the testimony with any documentary resources provided by the participants. In time, although I'm very conscious that time is running out, we also hope to carry out some archival research and a trawl of any secondary resources. This should provide more context for the personal recollections and identify the not always apparent bond between individual experience and the wider processes of history, the rise of sports centres, for example, or the rise of television in the 1960s, or perhaps the more prominent featuring of women in elite sport. Our online archive is hosted by Omeka. While it looks quite basic, it's purpose-built for hosting online archives. Each collection is built around an individual, sea swimmer Mark Steeple in this case. The collections contain an oral history interview, recordings of particular excerpts of the interview, a full transcript, a summary of the interview, a photo of the interviewee, and any supplementary materials. The archive contains nearly 250 items to date, and we will continue to build and curate it until project completion. In terms of outcomes, the online archive is key. In coordination with Kent Sport and hopefully Kent Archives, the site will be maintained online as a lasting and valuable resource for communities to learn about their sporting history, as well as providing a composite history of life and work in East Kent. In addition to this, we worked closely with the Folkestone Sports Centre to highlight its continued historical and social value to the district with the Popup Exhibition last September to coincide with National Sporting Heritage Day. In lieu of in-person interviewing and group work since March, we have also been busy preparing and compiling our planned book for the project, which again will hopefully serve to highlight and preserve the oral histories in edited form, as well as being a nice thing for the participants and their families to have. If circumstances allow, we're also hoping to hold a witness seminar or co-reflection group, which will give participants an opportunity to discuss and reflect on their engagement with the project and to compare and contrast their lived and sporting experiences in relation to others. In terms of well-being, the intrinsic nature of the oral history approach opened up the possibility of constructive social and personal outcomes. Oral history is about individual lives, and for oral historians, any life is of interest. Oral history is also incredibly inclusive and accessible as a methodology. Dependent upon speech, it isn't tethered to the often demanding and restrictive skill of writing implicit in more traditional avenues of historical research. The vast majority of our respondents have been older people. Many of them live alone and some have dementia and physical disabilities. I think that for some participants, the oral history process was a social and intellectual outlet. By giving people a chance to reflect upon their lives, to remember, for example, moments of joy, affection, and achievement, the process perhaps provided them with a sense of purpose and comfort. Moreover, by showing to them that their own history is valued and indeed historically significant, the project gave people confidence both in their own memories and in themselves. This goal of improving well-being was of course central to our Sporting Memories Reminiscence Clubs at Folkestone Care Centre and Folkestone Sports Centre, which were set up with the training and ongoing support of the Sporting Memories Foundation. During sessions, club members were encouraged to share their sporting stories, to play sports-based quizzes and games, and to take part in light physical activities. We use resources provided by the Sporting Memories Foundation, as well as our own growing archive of sound recordings and documentary sources to stimulate conversation and reflection and to have fun. I think in many cases, the sessions demonstrated how recollections of sport can provide a valuable psychic link to childhoods and family members, to cherish routines and to fond moments and events. We found that recalling such things and sharing them with others was a simple, practical and positive way of connecting people and improving well-being. Working with Age UK, Kent Libraries, Romney Marsh Resource Centre and local dementia groups, we were also able to facilitate some one-off reminiscence sessions. With the current suspension of groups, we've remained in contact with some participants and their family members either over the phone or by email. Thanks to the Sporting Memories Foundation, which has been incredibly proactive and innovative around staying in touch with their members during this period, the footballing reminiscences of 2 of our participants were featured on a national TalkSport radio broadcast. And finally, I just want to say a few words about the way in which the heritage and well-being strands of the project became intertwined. As I said, many of our oral history participants are older, and Caring All Together on Romney Marsh, a partner organisation and a charity supporting people who are socially isolated, became an important referrer. We also sourced interviewees from our Sporting Memories reminiscent sessions at the Care Centre and Sports Centre, as well as other community groups accessed by elderly people. So, for example, I met Alan Bartley at his local Sunshiners group, a service for people in Kent in the early stages of dementia. A lifelong lover of sports, Alan became a member of our Folkestone Sports Centre Club and later spoke to me for an oral history interview about his sporting experiences and accomplishments and about living with dementia. Alan and another member of the Sports Centre Club then started attending the care sessions. Here he spoke to some of the residents about Folkestone's sporting landscape, including the history of the town football club, Folkestone Invicta, in levels of detail that I was unable to due to a lack of local knowledge. Just as an observer, I felt it was these sorts of conversations, which invariably developed into wider discussions, that form the heart of the project. Conversations about sporting history and local connections that created pride of place, a sense of belonging, collective and individual empowerment, and perhaps most importantly of all, friendship. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Michael. I'm just stopping sharing slides and trying to clap at the same time, which is multitasking isn't my thing. So we've got about 5 minutes left just for questions. And I see a question from Nick in the chat. So if I can put that to you, Michael. Nick's asking, as people continue to mature and new sports are created, why would the Kent Sports Archive ever become complete? Do you have any thoughts around that?
No, I don't think it will become complete. Yeah.
They tend not to, do they?
No. Did I say that in the presentation?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, we'll go on as long as we can. You know, we want to continue to add to the archive. Yeah, I think the project's we're planning to go on for a few months yet. So yeah, we'll do as much as possible in that time.
Yes, certainly. Very often it does come down to sort of funding and timing and more funding, but I believe exactly. There's some nice people from the National Lottery Heritage Fund in the room, so who knows, you know. Has anybody else got any questions or thoughts? I can't see anything else in the chat. And I can't see any hands up either physically or with little things. No, if anybody's got anything they want to unmute and shout out, you're very welcome. He says, bracing himself for an onslaught. No?
Perhaps, Alan, we could unmute and just congratulate everyone.
That would be nice.
Yeah, to all the groups. So
yes, yeah, big round of applause.
Big round of applause to everyone. Thank you.
In that case, I shall hand back to Jane to close.
Right. Well, thank you all very much. I mean, that really is truly inspirational. Some fantastic projects, and congratulations to you all. And we look forward to hearing more at the future webinars. So, yes, it's just to thank everybody, thank all our contributors for a fantastic and fascinating afternoon. Thank everybody also who have been involved in bringing this together. I know Elaine's been very busy on social media, and I'm sure others have too, so thank you for that. Thank you for Alan for hosting, and for Andrew for looking after the chat, and for Nick for contributing to the AGM as well. So please, we hope we see you at our next webinar, which, as Alan said, is on the 16th of November. We've also got one on the 7th of December. Do take a look at the website, and if you're not a member, please think about joining. Right.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, everyone, and good evening.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.